engravers. This is Justin here. We are looking at another video in our series on the Engraving Challenge for June 2020. We are looking at Beach's Romance, and this is an edition engraved by Scott Jones. This particular edition is 9 by 12 page size. And the main thing that I noticed right away is it's trying very faithfully to recreate the original. And I think this might be the closest one we've seen so far that does that. So I'm going to keep that in mind when we go through this. So certain decisions that are being made will be obviously taken into account because they were just part of the original. But I'm still going to point out certain things that could be done better even in that context, or things that were really good. So first thing right off the top, obviously there's certain older things that we wouldn't do anymore, like the name Mrs. H.H.A. Beach, or all these periods everywhere after all of these text blocks, and I wouldn't do those as all caps either. And this tempo marking feels a little bit large. I'd probably bring that down a little bit. And then something that's true for the entire piece is the dynamics in the piano part feel small, right? So this one, just in general, they all feel small, so that's something to think about. Make it a little bit bigger. This particular engraving was done with Finale, so the main font we're looking at is Maestro, which is a bit of a strange choice if we're trying to be so traditional because it is a more modern font. It's got very nice sharp corners, which is why it's been so popular. So you'll notice the stem lengths are actually quite thin, but the bar lines are not, and the staff lines are not, which that's really nice. I think that's good. They should be thicker by default anyway. Finale likes to give really thin lines. Let's just really quickly look here. We have 7 millimeters for the piano part and then 5 millimeters for the violin. Very typical sizes for those staffs. A few things here. These hairpins are not straight across. They need to be straight across. There's no reason to like angle them up and down here. A lot of these slur tips could be better, right? So you want it to not quite hit the edge there, and you want your curves to be a bit more consistent. One thing that Finale does is it makes the tip of the slur much sharper than an Spalius or Dorco or whatever. So it also has a bit of a different math on how it handles the slur arc size. So be careful of that, because this has such a sharp edge. It's not a point, but it's a very small tip. So you really need to be careful on where you place that because it's easy to just get it lost in here like it was done here. This I would not do as a dotted, this line here. I would not do it as a dotted. If you are going to keep it, then keep it as a standard solid line, which shows that the melody continues from this staff to this staff. And then we're just going to go through, look at some of these slurs. So again, you want to go from the middle to the middle of the staff line or the staff space when it's there. This one's not getting all the way over, and it needs to get up like that. Since we're using an original edition conventions here, a lot of these triple eighth notes are just kept as they are. It's fine if I'm going to ignore that for this edition because this edition is keeping that consistent. Slight collision there. This guy could be a little better. So could this guy right here. Get it right in the middle of the space. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just say that as a general comment throughout. You need to be careful about your slurs so that they're more consistent in their arc. So like some of these have the one edge is more bulbous than the other, which is not what you want. You want a consistent arc across the whole thing. And if I were to draw that in terms of the curve action points, it would look something like that, where you have the tip of each edge, and then there's a trapezoid shape like that. And you want to have essentially the distance or the angle of this action point to be the same as this one as much as possible. Sometimes it's not possible because you got to get the sort of move around an obstacle or something. But most of the time you want to keep those as close to a standard trapezoid shape as possible. So again, here we go, right in the middle. I'm not going to mark every single one of them because we're going to be here for a while if we do that. These could use a little bit more space here. Just a hair. Doesn't need to be a huge amount. And I would probably do this as a flat beam here, because you have these two D's right next to each other. So that usually indicates a flattened beam. This you have to be careful with here. You've got collisions in your hairpin. There's no reason for this to be angled. Get it nice and flat. And move your staves around so it fits. This is not going to work here. What you should probably do is flip those around so that your B is on this side while your C is on this side. And that way the dot gets out of the way of everything else. In this particular case here, this is something Finale does a lot, where it really tries to enforce the octave rule, which is good in most situations, except for situations like this where you're below the staff and well outside of the staff. So you'd probably want to shorten that to about a sixth or a seventh of distance, just so it doesn't look so long on these others. And that usually only applies really in this situation like this where you have a flat beam. It becomes really obvious that those are too long. All right, again, slur, keep that nice and consistent there. Let's go to the next page. So in this layout, we're doing 5 systems per page, which is pretty much how the original did it. So I think we're all right. It's a little bit dense in some spots vertically, but I think we're okay here. As much as I would like, to keep the original beaming, that one cannot stand, where you have the duple eighths tied over or beamed together with the triplet. That's just not going to work. That's going to get very confusing, and the triplet should be on the bottom. Okay, get your slur right in there underneath that accent. This 8 is colliding a little bit, and I'm not sure why there's a hook there, because it continues to the next line. So those should not be 2 separate lines. It should be one continuous line. Not a huge fan of this accent symbol. It feels very weak. I'm not sure if that's Maestro or Engraver or something else, a different font in there, but I would investigate getting a more basically thicker lines on that accent. Even just larger, maybe just a little bit larger. Okay. This is nice. The slur is actually getting from node head to node head there. That's good. Got a bit of a collision situation there. Also, this is a little bit inconsistent. It might be because of the original edition, but you're doing up stem B here, but yet you're doing down stem B here. So just pick one and stick with it, because If you did upstem B here, it makes this slur a lot easier to make. Let me do that one more time. Something like that. And yeah, in a modern edition, that one would be broken there, where you're starting to have 16ths inside one of those groups of 4/8. Okay, let's keep going. This slur is a little bit wonky. I think one thing that will definitely help is just getting it down there. It'll make that curve seem a little less extreme. I know this is trying to keep with the original, so I'm not going to comment on that further. What you can't do is do things like this, where you have your collisions with the hairpins. That's just sloppy. Subtle detail here, you've got your poco writ and your odd tempo. They're actually different sizes here, and yet they're the same size here, and they're smaller than your poco marcato. That there's all sorts of hierarchy problems there. First of all, they always have to match if they're the same level of hierarchy, which they are here. And your tempo should not be smaller than your expressions. So I don't know why the marcato is so large there. That seems a little bit strange. Maybe check on your text or expression settings. You need some alignment here. Those need to be aligned. So get that SF down, the onomato, get it down. I'd probably pull this onomato up a bit. And again here, maybe it's the original edition, but get those accents on the correct side. They need to be on the note head side, not the stem side. This is a little subtle thing. The slur here needs to show the contour of the line. So like right now, see how it's going? It's actually rises when it shouldn't. It's actually falling. So what you want to do is make sure, if you are going to do it from space to space, either it has to go right from the middle to the middle, or you get it even closer and bring it down farther. Right? Something like that. To show just really subtly that there is a difference there. This is not going to fly here. You can't overlap those two. The quarter note's going to get lost. So what you should do is move the 8th off that quarter note. And the reason for that is this, all that you know that this is a quarter note is that tiny little line there. That's all that's telling you that, and that's not good enough. It's going to get lost. So you definitely have to separate your 8th notes when it's overlapping like that. The obvious thing to do here is just to move the second voice over just a little bit. So you move it like right there, and then they're not overlapping. Okay. Good. Next page. Page 4. Okay, we got more problems with the hairpins here. Got to check on that. This slur's got some issues. It really doesn't need to collide into all these naturals. There's enough room there. And this one needs to start in this space here, not in the space that's where the same note is. It's going to start in the adjacent space. All right, so it will go like that. Same with the accents here. We talked about that. Okay. This slur is really tough here. It really just needs to get into there, into that note head, and then make this beam less extreme. That's way too extreme for an angle. Same with this one. And then get this one right in there. Curve it right in there. For some reason, this tie is all bulbous. That makes no sense. This should be closer in like that. And then whee, like that. Perfect. Okay, we got nice portato here. Some of these slurred, I mean, these two, the rest are okay. These two seem a little bit little bit bulbous here, so probably pull those in just a little bit. Same here. That curve has a little bit of an issue there. Okay, this one has to be flat, that beam right there. Also, if you're going to commit to this direction, you need to be careful with that. The standard stem direction rules would say because the C is farther away, then these should all actually go down. Either way, it should be flat. Here's something really subtle that we don't see that often, but it's something to think about, is when you are positioning stems for 32nd notes and higher, you got to be really careful that the staff line doesn't cut through one of the white spaces there. So all you have to do with that is just adjust this beam to be just a little bit longer. There's other subtle things you can do there. It depends on if your notation program supports it. I believe Finale does, where you can actually subtly increase the white space distance between the 32nd note beams, but only in 32nd notes. So that's a really subtle thing, but that will allow you to have to avoid this situation, because there's just try some experiments on it. You'll see what I mean. The math of how the spacing of the beams and the spacing of the staff and everything, it starts to get in each other's way. So you cheat a little bit by increasing the white space there. Careful with this little collision there. And here's that same thing from before. I would make these a little bit shorter, especially since they can match right here. Okay, let's keep going here. This is cute, keeping the original plate numbers. Don't really need to do that in this case, because they're not really meaningful. I mean, it's a quirky way of keeping it look really original. Got a few slurs here again. It's the same issues. This particular slur is quite difficult to do. Again, just try your best to get more angle out of that, or move the clef change. I have typically been putting it right there. These ties are very bulbous for some reason. Not sure why that is. It should be nice and flat just like the rest. Here we got stems up here to keep the rule consistent. You did it here, but not here. All right, nice use of Sol D and Sol G. Probably would do those in Roman type instead of italics. Also, this is a bit jumbled here. I mean, these should be aligned. These two items. Same here, they should be aligned. This is not centered there. That's really small amount, but it's noticeable. These naturals here, this is a nice little subtle thing. These naturals can come closer. They can snuggle up a bit more. And again, slurs, get them right in there. This hairpin is, it starts a little too early. It ends a little too early. Got a small collision right there. This is okay right here. You're just getting away with that. I mean, if it was any closer of an interval, you wouldn't get away with that. So, but that's okay. I think all these pedal lines here should all be aligned. It's usually good practice to just do that all the way through. In an entire system, that is. This is a little awkward place for the clef change. I'd probably put it either here or here, even there. but certainly not in the middle of a slur like that. That's the worst option out of all of these. Again, just get a little bit better curvature on these slurs. All right, next we have Portano. You got a bit of a collision in there. Collision here, so just get your piano down a little bit. Sorry, that's the wrong direction. This should go something like that. This is a subtle mistake that I've seen. These actually have to be stems up. Right there. Because the bottom E is further away. And then just be careful, these slur ends, they need to be off the line. These also are too short, these staff lines. So, you know, sometimes it's too long, sometimes it's too short. I would definitely make an argument to make this one as flat as well, because the contour of the line is a bowl. So work on that. Probably make these a little bit longer as well. All right, let's keep going. Okay, next page. So we've got small amounts of triplets here when the triplets start going. If you are going to do that, I would definitely put these triplet marks in here, or, you know, flip them over onto the stem side. That would be preferred. I would definitely break that just like we did earlier. This trill line, I mean, I would prefer to do an individual trill line for every note, because that is what's happening in practice. It's a different trill for every note. And this is another one where I would say it's not negotiable. You really have to split this one because it's too confusing otherwise. All right, and for these triplets, I would do an entire bar's worth at least, and then put sim. Then after that, you're golden. It's fine. This 8VA seems a little unnecessary here. I've always been kind of critical of that one in particular. I would just put that up because this gets very low for an 8VA. Again, flip, flip. This is good. It's all good triplet stuff. You need some alignment there, both of those. Okay, it's getting a little bit spread out here, but I know the original did that as well, so it would fit well onto all the pages. Again, you got to line those up, and your dynamics are changing size again. You're getting some issues with that. Okay. This is where some of the staff stem directions need to change. So here, that one needs to go that way. That one needs to go that way if you're going to follow the standard rules. Again, split that one. Here, definitely put that one up. And same there. These are too short. These lines, or the stems there. Okay, good. Again, we got the different sizes going on here, so definitely look into that. That's not going to work. You got to get your sizes to be more consistent. Okay, this is good. Again, same thing, the stems, just make them a little bigger. You've got the room. I would definitely not do these as a downward hairpin. Make it straight, and if you absolutely have to, increase your size of the distance between the staffs. Same on this one. I'm not sure why that one is. Let me do it with this tool. Not sure why that one's that way. Okay. Some of these slurs here. So get that one right in there. There we go. The staccato placement seems to be really nicely done in general. Probably move this one note earlier, just make it a little bit less awkward. All right, and then up here, so this is from the old edition as well, but the modern way to do that would be 2 beams, and then get this slur actually out of the way, and that hairpin should be right in the middle. There's no reason to have that floating away on the top staff there. Same here. This one can come down. I'd probably pull these rests up just a tad so that you don't get this touching there. And these should be equivalent in size. Slur, for example, get this guy right down there. Get it in there. This is probably too bulbous as well, right there. I'd get that tighter against that tie. This is a little tricky to draw. Get that tighter against the tie and right into the other note. And another one of those non-negotiables. You gotta put the triplet as its own thing. And in this case, I probably would move the 8VA to here because it's like one phrase, so it keeps the 8VA consistent over the whole phrase. All right, so that's it for the piano part. Let's have a look at the violin part. Uses a 2-3 layout, which would be a reverse fold. It's not marked as 3 here, or as 2, sorry. The 3 is over here, which is fine for some editions. Some publishers might have a problem with that. One thing this is doing, and definitely trying to show the older style, you see the instrument is actually marked here in the center. That's a very old-fashioned thing, and I would not do that even if this was trying to be an old edition. I would definitely put it up here, because there's this whole big tradition about having the part names on the upper left for librarian's sake. Most of the things from the piano part do apply here in regard to the slurs and all that, so I'm not going to talk about that at length. Let's just talk about the layout a little bit. Let's look at our size. So we have 7 millimeters, which is fine. That's a good size for this. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on page 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we are dealing with 21 systems here. So totally reasonable. And it's nicely balanced as to the amount of music on each page. So I think that's really nice. And I believe this is mimicking very closely the original layout, which was pretty good. So I think that was a wise choice to mimic, since you're using so many of the other conventions from the original, that you're just going to mimic the layout, which is nice. So, I mean, all the things that I said before about the slurs, you know, they need to all be applied here. Again, beam angles, the accent symbols. I think one thing that could really be improved is the dynamics being aligned better. Like here and here, they're kind of just jumping all over the place. And that's just, you need to have better attention to detail as a result. So here, here, here. This is too close. These are too close. This is too close in general, but that's a bit difficult to deal with. This is way too close. these are not aligned at all. So yeah, be more careful with your dynamics and how you're managing the alignment there. And you, in general rule of thumb is you want to have at least one space worth of distance from the dynamic to the staff. So some of these are like way too close to the staff. They're not giving the staff any room to breathe. Like this one's good. When you see this one in the bottom, it's got to get a little bit of space in there to work with. Right? So definitely want to be careful of that. And that's true for anything below the staff or even above for that matter. You want to give enough room. So like right here, you even got a collision. All of these need to come down. And the same thing about text sizes. You have a few different sizes of the different things. That needs to be all more consistent. Same things that we talked about the triplets. Break these. Triplets should be on the stem side. This is one little thing. I think this particular bar here should probably be moved over here so that you get this entire phrase all in one line together. And if you do that, you can probably cascade this trill thing to also be all in one line. Again, you got some alignment issues here. Again, those should be aligned there. This is way too far down. I don't know why that one's so far down. You know, slurs. Break there. Pull that one down just a bit. Pull that one down. And if these are one thought, which I believe they are, they need to be aligned and right next to each other. Okay. Yeah, so you get the point. There's just a lot of detail work that has almost nothing to do with the notes. This is almost entirely dynamics. So that's something to work on. And one other thing here is I'd probably give a little bit more room here. Generally, 3/4 of an inch from your top margin is usually a good amount. So give it a little bit more room. You've got the room. And then I would adjust your staff spacing here so that they're more consistent. Because I can see that sometimes here 17 seems to be the standard. But then sometimes it's changing, going up and down. It's like this one's closer for no good reason. That should definitely be consistent with the others. And you've got enough room on this page to do it. So you should always adjust your staff spacing as a last resort, for sure. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to mark up on this one. Thank you very much for submitting, and we will see you in the next one.